I've spent much of my life living and traveling abroad. That is until a major illness swept into my life and forced me to live mostly housebound. But now I'm happy to report that I'm well enough to follow my dream of living in Paris part of each year. It's taken me years to feel that I'm finally adjusting to Parisian culture. So in this video, I'll share with you why I'm having a much better experience this time around. This is my 4th year back in Paris, and I'm absolutely delighted to find that Paris is beginning to feel like a home. So often when going to live abroad, much of the first year or two turns out to involve a lot of work and stress. It feels like an emotional roller coaster where the highs are much higher and the lows so much lower. For me, the highs tend to be higher because so much about my new world is foreign, which, in its best moments, makes the experience wonderfully stimulating and adventurous. And the lows tend to be lower for roughly the same reasons. Because my new world is so foreign, many of life's daily tasks and challenges become more stressful and time-consuming, and I tend to feel more insecure and frustrated, almost as if I'm an infant learning how to walk and talk. But happily enough, this 4th time back, at long last, I'm adjusting well to Paris. It's not just because I've assembled a healthcare team here to help me manage my illness, or that my French is better. For me, those are the easier and more obvious adjustments. The more elusive, difficult challenges involve trying to understand and adapt to Parisian ways and customs. So I'll share with you an example of how I'm finally noticing the more subtle nuances of Paris, in this case, understanding what the word no means over here. You would think that the word no simply means no, would you not? Well, not necessarily, at least not in Paris. Toward the end of my last year's Paris stay, I shared with some of my Parisian friends how frustrated I could feel by the many rules and regulations here, and that I felt as if I spent too much time hearing people say no to me, while telling me why something couldn't be done. For instance, I would ask the cashier at the grocery store if she could give me a €5 bill as part of my change, and instantly she would say no. I was not used to this and didn't know how to handle it. Upon hearing my frustrations, one French friend replied, "Annie, here in France, the word no doesn't mean no." "What does it mean then?" I asked. He said that it often means we haven't done that before. My friend then explained that Frenchmen can be suspicious of people they don't know, that they can be quick to fear that you'll take advantage of them if they say yes to your requests. Another Parisian friend, after listening to my frustrations, replied, "Don't take it too seriously, Annie. The French tend to be taught to say no before they get to yes." Yet another friend explained, "You need to understand that there are different levels of the meaning for the word no here. For instance, a no parking sign to a Parisian? Why, that's practically an invitation to park there. As soon as meter maids go home at the end of the day," he said, "Parisians park all over the place, even on sidewalks. But they don't break the rules completely. In other words, they won't park in the middle of the street. But if the no parking sign has a picture of a tow truck with a red line across it," he explained, "to a Parisian that tends to mean, no parking, I mean it." So you might imagine that all of these explanations left me even more baffled. But this year I seem to be catching on, and a good example would be the time I set off to take a picture of topiary trees in a garden here. I had gone to the garden because I wanted to take a picture of myself there. So I set up my tripod, and immediately a guard appeared to inform me that tripods were forbidden in the garden. This time when I was told no, I handled the situation differently. First I started out by saying, "Could you please advise me? I told the guard how much I love the trees, that we don't have anything like them in the U.S. So, I explained, I wanted to take a picture of myself peeking out from behind a tree, but I was alone and couldn't photograph myself without a tripod." Immediately the guard replied, "I'll take the picture for you." So the guard snapped several pictures as I poked my head out this way and that from behind a manicured tree. The entire time he grinned from ear to ear, clearly finding the whole affair highly entertaining. Now I don't fool myself into thinking that I fully adjusted to Paris. I could live here full-time for another 10 years and still not completely understand this culture. But a sure sign that I'm adapting to the local culture is that I'm now relaxing around some of these cultural differences. I am finding those traits that used to irritate me, like the tendency to say no so often, are actually funny. I'm even beginning to see things like the tendency to say no as simply a part of Parisian charm. All of this has created an important sea change for me here. During my previous Paris days, when the going got rough, I would think to myself that I wasn't sure that it was my dream to live part-time in Paris after all. Perhaps I would think I'd prefer to come as a tourist for 4 to 6 weeks a year and get to stay in the honeymoon phase of being in a foreign land. But I wanted to try giving it a longer go for several more years before I made that judgment call. So how is life here different this year? Well, I may be having a bad week or a tough day, and I may feel exhausted or frazzled, but all the while, I know that all the work and stress has been worth it, and that I'm still living a kind of dream.